Welcome to View from Brussels. Today we're talking about Europe's housing crisis. House prices have surged and rent keep climbing, while the Commission is preparing its Affordable Housing Act to be presented in September. But will it be enough? One of the key voices shaping this debate is MEP Borja Jimenez Laraz, here with us today. Borja, welcome.
Hi, hello, thank you.
You mentioned that there are around 10 million houses missing, but why did we end up to this point today?
Yes, I think that first of all we have to be aware that the prices have risen during the last 15 years, 60%. And when we talk about rent houses, it is 30%. There are an important part of the population, we talk about more than 10% of the population that have to allocate more than 40% of their incomes to the houses, and this is provoking an important crisis. And the reason behind this is because we have not built enough, we have not renovated enough houses. This is a reality, and now in this moment we should need to build 10 million houses to meet the demand. And the situation is that with this scenario, what we have observed is that during the last 5 years, the number of building permits have decreased 20%. So we need more houses because, yes, the population is growing in the whole continent. And the question is that at the same time, we are not building enough. We are building less houses that we used to do in the past.
What's the one decision the European governments should have taken 5 years ago that would have made the biggest difference today?
I think that we have to look at the reasons that are behind this crisis or this massive deficit of houses. That it is, first of all, we can talk about excessive regulation, excessive bureaucracy, long time to get permits. We have also problem of high taxes, problems to access to financing, the increase of the cost of the materials and the energy, the lack of workforce. All are the reasons that are behind this lack of supply. And this is what we try to address in the report approved by the European Parliament. And all the measures that we are proposing at this moment, we should have started to propose, but several years ago, I would say 10, 15 years, we should try to have defined a clear plan to avoid this structural deficit that we have at this moment. Because the problem is that as we have now this structural deficit, we have to define structural policies to tackle this problem, and we need time for it. And the problem is that we have an urgent crisis, and this is a really complicated situation in that sense.
About the report on housing, this puts a lot of emphasis on building more. If supply is the answer, why do some cities keep getting more expensive even when construction increases?
The question, or what we see, is that the problem is that mostly in the whole European Union we have this deficit of construction. Yesterday I had access, for example, to the data, the figures on the specific case of Spain in 2025. And the question is that in last year it was created 240,000 families in the whole country, and the problem is that it was built just 93,000 houses. So there is a massive deficit, and this is what it is happening in most part of the places. This is a structural problem, and we have to face this problem. So I don't really believe that there are a specific place where we are building a lot and the prices are also growing. The general picture is that we have this massive supply of this massive deficit supply, and that we have to face it.
You've also argued against rent controls, saying that they often backfires. But if a tenant were to experience a jump rent of 20% next year, That sounds like a long-term solution for a short-term emergency. What would you say to that person?
This is the worst part of this problem and this crisis that we have at European level. The problem is that we have this structural crisis, and the question is that we have to take action as soon as possible. And the only way to try to find a solution, as we need to build 10 million houses in the whole European Union, is to start to take the decisions to promote the construction from the public sector, but also from the private sector, both. It is necessary, it is really important. And the problem in the middle of this is we can talk about some measures that are now on the table, like, for example, the rent control or to cap the prices. The problem is that these measures have been tested in many places in Europe, in Paris, in Berlin, in Barcelona at this moment, and the effects are a completely disaster because they are not protecting the more vulnerable people, and at the same time the problem is that it disincentivizes the investment when we need to attract investment to the private sector, from the private sector to the building sector, and at the same time many owners withdraw their property from the market. This is a reality because they consider that, yes, it doesn't make sense to put their properties on the market. So as I tell you, we have a structural crisis, and we have to take these structural decisions, and we have a really good plan that I think that it is what we have to follow.
When investment goes into building new homes, you say it helps to solve the crisis. But when it goes into building existing housing stock or short-term rentals, does it still help, or does it start reducing access for locals?
We need to attract investment, and we have to mobilize private investment as much as possible, as the objective is to build these 10 million houses. Because the question is that we have to be aware that or we are able to provide this supply to the citizens, or the prices will continue growing. In that sense, we need to attract private investment, and for that, in our report from the European Parliament, we have proposed to flexibilize, for example, the access to the credit for the private companies, but also, of course, the access to public money with the European funds, the role of the European Investment Bank. It is really important to promote the construction of affordable housing in the whole European Union, and also to promote the private-public partnership. Those are crucial, but this is the reality. What we have to try is to mobilize as much money as possible.
Where should Europe draw the line on short-term rentals?
The short-term rentals, this is one of course, this is a very important topic. We are aware that it is generating tension in some specific places, but what we cannot do is to blame the short-term rentals of the crisis. If we ban all the short-term rentals in the whole European Union, we will continue with the same crisis. And the question is that we have to be aware also that the short-term rentals are part of our tourist sector in the whole European Union, more than this, I would say. But the tourist sector represents 10% of the GDP in the whole European Union, 13.5% in the case of Spain, and 15%, for example, in cities like Barcelona. So what we have to be also aware is that when we ban short-term rental, for example, we destroy one short-term rental, we are maybe destroying one employee. This is a reality. At the same time, we are completely aware that it is necessary to regulate, to put order on this sector, and in that sense, our proposal is that the European Commission presents something to establish the general framework, to give the tools to the local entities, the regions, to take action, because we are aware that in some places it is necessary to take action also from a social perspective, but just taking into account that the solution of the housing crisis in the whole European Union is not banning, for example, the short-term rentals.
One of your headline proposal is a 60-day permit target and positive administrative silence. Basically, if authorities don't answer on time, then the permit is granted. Do you see this as politically feasible at a regional level?
There is something that we have to be also aware on this, and it is that the time or the average time to obtain a building permit in the whole European Union is 5 to 6 months. But when we talk, for example, in some countries, like it is the case of Spain, it is from 12 to 18 months. And in some bureaucratic places, like it is, for example, the case of Brussels, where we are now, it is more than 2 years. The problem is that when we have these long periods to get the permits, this is a problem for the investors, a very serious problem for the investors. And we, from the European Parliament, at least we wanted to send a clear message that we have to improve the situation. We have to improve the situation because this is one of the reasons behind this lack of supply in the whole European Union. So we have defined a target of 60 days and also the inclusion of this principle of administrative silence, that I really believe that it will be very positive for it. Also, of course, maybe with the inclusion of some exceptions for this, and also the digitalization of this permitting, and the objective is just to try to avoid the bottlenecks, the administrative bottlenecks that we have and that are provoking a very serious problem.
The Commission's Affordable Housing Act lands in September. What are your expectations, and are there any red lines from the Parliament?
I would say, of course, it depends on the political group that you ask. At least what it is clear is that we have this general view from the European Parliament, endorsed by a very broad majority. Most part of the political groups supported the report, so I think that it is a very positive message. And the only thing is that I really believe that there is a clear message behind the position of the European Parliament, is that we oppose the interventionist measures because we consider that in the end are not positive and yes, and provoke serious problems for the market, the price caps also. And what we want to do is at least to request the European Commission to respect this position, because I think that it is important. From the Affordable Housing Act or the plan of the European Commission, there are some proposals that we like. The music is quite good for us. They talk about the simplification package that we expect for the next year, strategy of construction. They want to present something also on permitting. But the Affordable Housing Act, it is just focused on this specific matter of the short-term rentals. The first thing that we don't like so much is that the only legislative proposal that they are going to present, it is Affordable Housing Act, and it is related to the short-term rentals. That it is like it looks like the big problem of the housing crisis. It is the short-term rentals. We don't share clearly this view, as what we consider that it is very important is to put the focus on what it is very important, that it is to boost the supply. But of course, it is important, and we welcome this proposal. But we hope that we will avoid very, very interventionist measures.
The Socialists want affordable housing to become a permanent EU commitment and not just a temporary initiative. What's your take on this proposal?
There is something clear, and this was also mentioned by the President von der Leyen, that as this is now a problem of the European citizens, this is a problem of the European Union, and we want to take action. There is another point that it is clear that it is the principle of subsidiarity. This is mainly a competence of the member states, the regions, the local entities, but we have found that there is good space to take action from the European sphere, and we know that we have a structural crisis. So I really believe that yes, we should try to address from a permanent point of view in that sense, because we have a structural crisis. This is not just for to have a solution for tomorrow. This is something that we are going to have to work hard during the next years So yes, I see that it is important. Now we have this commissioner, we have a special committee in the European Parliament. I don't know if this should be a permanent committee in the European Parliament. There is a debate on this, a discussion, but the reality is that housing, this topic, is now on the table, is in Europe, and it is not going to disappear.
Thank you, Borja, for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for following, and if you like this episode of A View from Brussels, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.